morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another in the continuing series of Wharton Ready. This is our Livecast series featuring research from our accomplished faculty members. My name is Jeff Klein. I'm the Executive Director of the McNulty Leadership Program here at Wharton. And one of the ways that I work at Wharton Executive Education is through our Advanced Management Program, which is a 5-week program for senior executives that is just one of the true delights to be a part of. And I am delighted to be here today to have a conversation with my really good friend, my colleague, and we should just get this out of the way, one of my bosses here at Wharton, Nancy Rothbard, who is the chair of our management department. Hi, Nancy, how are you?
Hi, Jeff. Great to be here with you.
It's good to be here with you. And today's talk is titled Work Motivation and Engagement in a Work from Home World. So, Nancy, whatever could have inspired such a talk?
Well, Jeff, as we know, we've all been living through a really sudden shift in our world for a couple of months. And so I've actually been studying how do we navigate the boundaries between work and home for about 20 years now. And this, all of a sudden, all the things I've been looking at became new again in terms of what we're all living through. And so we're going to talk about how do we navigate the new normal in this world that we're all living in and trying to adapt to.
Yeah, so for all of you, we're delighted to have you with us here today. Just a few housekeeping items to make sure you can participate. To the right of your screen, you'll see the Q&A function. That's a great place for you to post questions and also respond to some of the questions that Nancy will be posing to you about working from home. So we'll be monitoring the Q&A function. If you have any technical problems, please go to the moderator chat function there. And we have tech support, which is standing by to assist you. Nancy, I said that you are the chair of the management department. I should also mention that you're the David S. Pottruck Professor of Management. I have known Nancy for 16 years, which is the same amount of time that I've been here at the Wharton School. And in that time, I've just been so impressed by her dedication to education, her research, which really, we're going to talk about this line of research, but she has many kind of deep wells of research and an ability to connect research to lived experience, right, and to the practice of leadership. And I'm really excited about that here today. To talk about that here today, for all of you who are either enrolled right now in Wharton Live programs or considering, additional Wharton Executive Education, you can get more interaction with Nancy through the Women's Executive Leadership Program, through the Adaptable Leader, which is a week-long course that Nancy and I run together. And then we'll talk a little bit more at the end about our new course, which will go out on Wharton Live, which is focused on leading virtual teams. Another challenge and opportunity that we all find ourselves faced with. So, Nancy, how do you want to get started with today's presentation?
Well, I think, Jeff, I want to start us off to really engage everybody in this phenomenon that we're going to be talking about, which is sort of the work from home experience and how people respond to it. So what I'd like us to do is actually be a little bit interactive in these next few moments. And so on your screen, you should have had a link that popped up. But if you haven't, what I'd love if you would do is you would go to polev.com/Nancy Rothbard and leave that screen up. And what you should see when you go to that screen is a poll question. And it should be the following, right? Pre-COVID, how would you have described yourself, right? Not working from home and happy about it, not working from home but curious about it, maybe you'd want to try it someday, working from home part-time, for 100% working from home. And so let's try to gauge, the range of experiences that we have here as we enter this conversation. And so if you can go to the website and start filling that in, we'll get a sense for the range of experiences. I can see that many of you are doing this now, so thank you. Keep it up. I'm seeing the numbers rise as you enter your responses. I'll just wait a few moments to let people have a chance to go to the website. And remember, keep this website up because I'm going to have a couple more poll questions for you within the next few minutes.
Nancy, pre-COVID, how would you have described yourself?
That's a great question, Jeff. So I would have said that I was not working from home, but happy about it. I love the office. And so, I would work from home at night or, if I needed to because my kids were sick or what have you, but I loved going into the office. So that was definitely a big change for me. But what's really interesting is that I actually am loving working from home right now. So I'm not really sure how I would describe myself. Maybe I'm flexible or adaptable, but I've been really, really kind of happy having, everybody here around me and working from home. So I'm not really sure why, but that's how I've transitioned. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I was chuckling as I saw the question because I felt like I would describe myself as working a lot, and then that was at the office or on campus, 5 or 6 days a week, and then certainly you and I spend some time late at night on the phone or answering emails or other things. So I was predominantly a work on campus kind of person, but I was always comfortable, especially with certain kinds of work, doing them from home. Sometimes to be able to, kind of wall out any distractions and be able to sit down and really focus on a particular piece of writing or a particular piece of reading. It was helpful to do that from home.
Agreed. All right, listen, Jeff, I think we have a critical mass here. So if you're still entering, please do so. But let me show you the responses that we have so far and see where people are. And so what we can see here is, and thank you all for filling this out. This is amazing. And we're still filling it out. You can see the numbers shifting slightly as we speak. But what we can see is that, there were a fair chunk of you that were like Jeff and I, not working from home primarily, but happy about it. But an equal number, if not more, that were not working from home, but open to it, right? Curious to try. And some of you were working from home 100%, 15% of you, and some part-time, right? And so we can see quite a range of experiences here. And those of you who are working from home 100%, what's interesting is that the U.S. Census Bureau has been tracking this for a long time. And with the overall U.S. population, at least, it's about 5% of U.S. workers. And that makes a lot of sense given the numbers I'm seeing here. We may be in this group a little more skewed towards knowledge workers. And knowledge workers have more ability to work from home. As we've seen, especially during the pandemic, the essential workers still didn't have the opportunity to work from home. And that's created a little bit of a digital divide that we see. And so, we really have quite a range of experiences. And some of us have skills that we can bring to the table. And so actually, I want to go from here to my next question, which is to all of you. And I'd like you to go to the Q&A screen here and answer the question, what do you like about working from home? I'm an optimist, ultimately. I want to start out positive. We're going to get to the challenges, but what do you like about working from home? What about the remote work situation you find yourself in? So, Jeff, if you could monitor the chat and we can see what kinds of responses we're going to start to get on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can get us started a little bit here, Nancy. I'll tell you, one of the things that I really appreciate is the ability to take the dog for a walk during the middle of the day. So, breaks are a little bit more, they have a little bit more possibility when you take a break and can get outside or have a conversation with one of my kids or something like that.
So I love that, Jim. I love the pet response, and I've heard that a lot from people. And I don't know what our pets are going to do when we all go back to the office. Quite frankly, they might have a nervous breakdown because they've been around us so much.
Yeah, and I should note that one of the things we've learned about our chocolate lab is that he really just sleeps all day. We had a different image of the way he was spending his time. Now, Nancy, one of the things coming up here is no commute, right? So that's some recaptured time, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so that is a biggie in terms of the categories that we see. No commute is a huge reclaimed time, as you say, that people are using to work longer, by the way. So that's something we have to keep in mind. We're not commuting, but we're often using that time in service of work. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in a few minutes. So the no commute's a biggie. Are there any other themes you're seeing, Jeff, come up?
Yeah, there are a bunch of really interesting comments here. So, one is the ability to have meals with family. That's become a little bit more regular and regimented.
So it's really, there's this really classic research in sociology on the family dinner, actually, and nobody quite understands why or if it's causal. Okay, I'll just put that out there. But there's something about the family dinner, having a regular family dinner, that leads to more stability in terms of the family relationships. And then the children actually end up having fewer socio-emotional problems and issues with, addiction. There's fewer addiction issues. And there's all sorts of interesting relationships that seems to come out with having like really strong family meal time where you talk about things and bond. So nice.
Yeah, we've also got a number of comments that are coming in here about the ability to integrate things like exercise into the day.
Right. So it's sort of like the flexibility of your schedule and kind of having autonomy over when you do things a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Nancy, I will note with many of these answers that or themes that I'm pulling out, they're not actually about the working part of working from home.
Right. They're about all the other. Yeah. Interesting. Right.
So there is some. Harder. Yeah. There are a number of comments here about a flexible schedule and an ability to prioritize, which I think gets to more of the core questions around work.
Absolutely. Really, really nice. I love that. And so, one of the things that we want to think about is, obviously what we enjoy about working from home. We also want to think, I love, that you point out, Jeff, that it's not necessarily the working part of working from home that's being highlighted here, but there is research that suggests that work from home can be very effective. There's some really nice studies on this that have looked at using field experiments. So really, really well identified, good studies that have some causal inference that you can make. But one of the things that they find is that there's a couple of key factors that are important. One is that people wanted to work from home. Okay, it wasn't necessarily forced on them. So their own choice in the matter seems to be important. The second piece that seems important is, and the reason why it seems to be, people seem to be more productive when they are working from home, is that they're working longer hours. So the no commute time, as long as you're converting that to more work time, that leads to more productivity, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third piece is that there are fewer distractions sometimes when people are working from home. But that's in terms of the classic research. I think it's also really important for us to recognize that in this pandemic, the work from home experience that we've been having is not typical, right? We're working from home, but we're surrounded by the people in our household. as well, often. And that can have the benefits that people were talking about in terms of the family meals and seeing your kids more, et cetera. But it can also be more distracting. And so some of the reasons that work from home has been found to be effective in the past may not translate one-to-one for the pandemic. So I want us to transition now, actually, to what the challenges people are facing are, so that we can then talk about what some solutions are to some of those challenges. So let's go to this question about what do you think is the most challenging about remote work? And here, the options that we can see are, that I'd like you to go to polev.com/Nancy Rothbard, are team coordination and communication. You know, is that the problem, the work itself? Is it your own resilience and energy? Is it the work-family distractions that you're experiencing? Or are you one of those lucky people, maybe those 14% who have been working from home 100%? No challenges, remote work is awesome, right? So let's hear from folks what you feel about what's the most challenging about remote work in the current situation. And then we'll get to see how people feel. Jeff, what is the most challenging for you?
I think, you know, we often talk about leadership being, you know, fundamentally about communication. And I think it's the amount of, you know, to put it at its most simple terms, the amount of talking and listening, which seems to be required right now. You know, I think part of it is how rapidly changing the world is, right? So that's requiring much more communication and coordination. But I'm finding that we're using multiple communication mediums, whether those are phone calls, video conferences, emails, text messages, Slack channels, and that just to keep everyone aligned and moving forward requires, you know, lots and lots of interaction.
Absolutely. That's a big one.
As, you know, as a decision maker, I have to be constantly gathering.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's definitely been challenging for me as well. But for me, actually, I would say I think it's the resilience and energy piece. The needing to kind of make sure that my energy and then I don't get burned out, and then I can kind of switch things up, and we'll talk about that. And for a lot of folks I've talked to, it has been the work-family distractions. Although, as I said initially, I'm actually surprised by how much I'm okay with the remote work, given how much I love the office, right? And so, you know, it's been a bit of a revelation for me, quite frankly. Okay, so I'm seeing some responses come in. Keep them coming, and I'm going to have us see though where people are saying the bulk of their energy is in terms of the challenge. So most of them are with you, Jeff, in terms of the coordination and communication. The second biggest category, which is kind of equal with the work-family distractions, is the resilience and energy with me, as well the work-family distraction piece, you know, having everybody around and managing that. And that's especially challenging if you have young kids or if you have, you know, elder care responsibilities. And so, you know, trying to understand life stage in this as well, I think is really important, right? And these challenges can shift depending on what our circumstances are. And so, you know, and I love that we have 11% of people who do not have challenges and think this is awesome. We are going to add, or 10%, we're going to ask you how maybe to say, like, what are your, I would love for you to put in the chat, what are the things that you feel are the most effective, okay? And we're going to talk through the rest of these challenges, but I'd love to hear from those who think that this is awesome, what helps you and what keeps you on track, okay? And so if you can do that as we go through and talk through each one of these, the team coordination and communication, resilience and energy, and work-family distractions. So, Jeff, I think you already got us started on team coordination and communication, both what's hard about it, right? We're not in the same place. This is always the challenge with any kind of virtual teaming, but that we need to, in fact, over-communicate. And we need to sometimes do more meetings than we were doing because things will fall through the cracks, right? And thinking about how to blend synchronous and asynchronous communication, for example, right? So having meetings, but then using asynchronous time well. And there's this really cool study that looked at remote work and remote teams. And what it found was that the teams that were the most effective were the ones that were able to use what they call burstiness, okay? It's like, I love this word, burstiness. And what burstiness means is that these teams were characterized by bursts of responsiveness. So what would happen would be if you sent out an email or a text message to me, and I really quickly responded and got right on top of it, and then you got back to me, and then another team member chimed in, and we were all kind of responding, even though we were asynchronous and we weren't face-to-face, but we were all responding in a really rapid fire way. That gave people the energy to kind of keep going on a hard task, and it also enabled them to get their work done more effectively because they weren't waiting for like an hour for the response, something that was on their minds right now. And so having burstiness followed by periods of what they call quiet time, right? Allowed teams to get things done really well, but also to pace themselves and have time for focused work. And so that combination seems to be really, really powerful and effective. The second thing I think is really important with team coordination and communication is to, as you said before, remember, you've just got to over-communicate and reach out to people and do check-ins. And it's really tiring, right? But that leads to the second piece on resilience and energy. And, for me, one of the things that I've really noticed about the work from home situation is I have to get up and pace myself. And so I literally will, try to schedule a couple minutes in between meetings, or I'll end the meeting 10 minutes early so I can take a bio break and then do some like walking in my house or something. I have to say my crazy pandemic obsession has been walking, and I'm now walking 10 miles a day on average, mostly in my house, which I know is a little weird, but it's partly to keep up this resilience and energy. And so finding the breaks, and you were saying before that one of the things that's awesome is, being able to take breaks when you want them. But I think we need to be more intentional about our breaks sometimes in order to maintain resilience and energy. There's great research on what are called micro breaks. And these are things like, relaxation, exercise, nutrition, which is like snack breaks or coffee breaks, breaks that involve social kinds of interactions, or breaks that, that involve like something like cognition, like reading a book or, reading the newspaper or something that kind of, you kind of switch off from your work. And what's really amazing is that this research shows that those breaks help increase vitality, reduce fatigue, and increase performance. Three of those four types of breaks, the relaxation, nutrition, the social, or the cognitive breaks. Those are the four types. Three of those four actually work, and one of them doesn't. Can you guess which one doesn't?
Food.
Got it, Jeff. The snack breaks. They don't work. So if you take nothing away from this half an hour, everybody, remember the snack breaks don't work, okay? So let's
Maybe
talk about
if you pair it with some of that walking you were talking about, right?
the walking might help, right? Exactly. You can only snack if you're walking. All right, so let me actually go to our last piece, which is this work-family distractions, and this is a big issue, but it also relates to your work style. And so, there are some people who are integrators. These are people who like to overlap and blur the boundary between work and home, whereas segmenters like to keep a sharp distinction between work and home. Segmenters don't like to talk about their family in the office. They like to, they don't like to necessarily do family-related things on work time. Integrators will have lots of pictures of their family in their office. They'll talk about their family. They'll take work home. The kind of the distinction, the boundary between work and home is much more blurred for integrators than segmenters. So, think about how you would characterize yourself as primarily an integrator or a segmenter. And it turns out that this has an implication for how you want to think about dealing with some of the work-family distractions that you might be facing. So, Jeff, are you, as people are filling this out, are you an integrator or a segmenter?
I am an extreme integrator.
Yes, I would say that is true, given what I know about you. And what would you, how would you describe, how you've been working from home during the pandemic? Do you have an office?
Well, yeah, I don't have an office. For any of the Wharton Ready Livecast, for our devoted members, I've been on here a few times with Mauro Guillen and with Sigal Barsaid before. You may notice that there's always a different background behind me. So today I'm at my dining room table because no one else is home in my house. But if they were, everyone would be kind of moving through here, and so I'd be hiding in the basement or maybe outside. So I tend to just shift through the house and find a temporary workspace as opposed to have one which is established. And it's funny because as I'm looking at the comments here, someone said their key to working from home was a solid door, right?
That is a segmenter. Yes.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote that, you are likely a segmenter, and that is a very smart strategy for a segmenter. So Jeff is an extreme integrator. I'm an integrator as well, not quite as extreme as Jeff. I don't know if you've noticed my background. I'm sitting here in my kitchen. And so a segmenter would never be sitting in their kitchen or in the dining room where Jeff is if they could possibly help it. A room with a door that they close is really, really critical, right, to kind of help them focus and kind of keep things on track. I don't mind if my kids come into, the background behind me when I'm on a lot of my meetings. I did warn them, however, that this was probably not the best meeting for them to wander in and get a snack from the cabinet behind me. So, I'm able to modify my integrating tendencies and schedule things, but, I have to really work at it. And so if you're a segmenter, you probably have a lot of skills already at separating the work and the non-work interface. And you want to draw on those skills right now. But, this is also likely a harder situation for you because not being able to kind of wall things off is really challenging for segmenters, right? Especially if you don't have a room with a door. And so thinking about that, it's really important to kind of understand where you lie. And here we see, we're about, evenly divided, a little bit more on the integrating side than the segmenting side. And I actually have seen a trend in that in recent years with the advent of a lot of technologies. And so, I think this is another piece of this dimension to be thinking about in work from home of, are you an integrator or a segmenter, and how are you going to structure your work so that it can be effective for you? If you're an integrator, like Jeff and I, you also may need to do a little more managing of your boundaries, even if it doesn't come naturally to you. So I see that we're close to time, Jeff, so I will turn it back to you to close us out, but it has been just a delight. We have a nano tool that I've written that talks about integration and segmentation in particular, and gives some tips so that you can follow up on this live cast. So thank you so much.
All right, and let me add my thanks first to Nancy for joining us here on this week's edition of our Wharton Ready Livecast series. The conversation and the questions, I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them in the Q&A function, and I hope that you have all skimmed through some of the commentary on there. There's a lot of great specific tips for how to make sure you're scheduling in the right kinds of breaks, checking in with colleagues, and also, also differentiating the kinds of work that you're doing, at different points in the day. This question of how do we work from home, how do we sustain our teams, how do we sustain culture, how do we monitor effectiveness? These are really, really important questions. And Nancy and I are delighted to be a part of a new Wharton Live program, which will be on leading virtual teams, which you'll get a little bit more information about shortly. And I think with that, I will start to sign off as well. I'm going to turn this over to our good friend and colleague, Ed Sierri, for some closing announcements.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff and Nancy. So on behalf of the Wharton Livecast team, I just want to thank everyone for attending today, and a special thanks to Professors Nancy Rothbard and Jeff Klein for today's session. Just want to let everyone know a link to the recording will be provided in 24 to 48 hours, so please be on the lookout for that. As Jeff mentioned also, if you're interested in learning more from Jeff and Nancy, visit the Wharton Exec Ed Live website at whartonexecedlive.com to learn about leading virtual teams, which will be running in September. So visit the website for more information about that. And the next Wharton Livecast series will take place next week, July 7th. We will have Professor Peter Conti-Brown joining us, and his topic will be about the Federal Reserve in the time of COVID, what the impact has had, and where do we go from here. So we look forward to seeing everyone for next week's session. As always, we thank everyone for attending today, and we hope that everyone stays safe and has a great rest of the week. So thank you, everybody, and take care.